ischemic strokes after flow diverter placement. Very nice, or probably very good molecule will come very soon, with a very rapid onset after 2 minutes and quick offset with 1 hour. So probably this will be very good drug in the future for acute treatment. And how can we select, or what should we do? If we have a patient with a clopidogrel resistance, we should prefer to use ticagrelor or prasugrel. In a patient with a history of stroke or ischemia or TIA, clopidogrel or ticagrelor must be preferred. In group taking proton pump inhibitors, ticagrelor or prasugrel is preferred. In a group of all patients more than 35 years old, clopidogrel or ticagrelor is preferred to prasugrel. And in a group of patients with a body weight less than 60 kilograms, which is not my case, you should use clopidogrel or ticagrelor, or you need to reduce the dose of prasugrel to 5 milligrams per day. How can we switch between molecules? In acute phase, what we need to load, if we want to switch to ticagrelor, we need to load the patient with 180 milligrams, and if you want to switch from clopidogrel to prasugrel, you need to put the patient 60 milligrams of loading dose, and then after it's followed by 10 milligrams of prasugrel, or the patient must use 90 milligrams of ticagrelor twice daily. So let's conclude. I don't want to discuss if we need stand so much, this discussion must be performed prior to the treatment. And if you decide, yes, we need to treat the patient with a stent implantation, and there is what we need to do, we need to test the patient for antibiotic resistance, and if there is no resistance, you can use aspirin with clopidogrel, and if you find the clopidogrel resistance, basically it's possible to switch the patient to ticagrelor or prasugrel. But if you have probably there are mostly neurologists in the audience, so if you have a patient with a history of ischemic stroke, ticagrelor is a preferred molecule. So let me say, unfortunately we don't have sufficient evidence to support these new molecules, but I believe that in the future we will have more data to show if it's really beneficial for the patient or not. But we can say that in a moment of decision, the best things you can do is the right thing to do. The next best thing is the wrong thing, and the worst thing you can do is nothing to do. So for me, if I have a patient presented, for example, with a ischemic stroke because of because of failure of pacemaker treatment, or if I need to treat intracranial aneurysm and the patient is non-responder, I prefer to switch the patient to new molecules and to treat the patient with these possible techniques. So thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Mrs. Shikari. We shift to the next speaker. We start with Professor Arturo Consolio from mechanical thrombectomy of Fuchs Prize, National Council of Italian Society of Neuroscience. Shall we start?
So thank you for your great invitation. I'm so honored to be here and associate to the congratulations from Professor Sicona and all other speakers for your great achievement of today and for the organization of this great conference. So what I will talk about is something that you will be very concerned about during the next years. And so the two main techniques to treat acute ischemic stroke from a vascular point of view. It means the mechanical thrombectomy by stent retriever and the contact aspiration technique. These were the disclosures of the main investigators of this trial, which is the ESTER trial, that I'm going to show to you. And however, we will start from a very, very short background. Knowing that in 2014, you can remember we had the worst scientific failure for endovascular treatment for stroke. And we had just a couple of years later a big revolution because we finally had the evidence for mechanical thrombectomy. We had new devices and overall a different patient selection. And then, from that moment on, and something which is also going on today, we have had an incredible evolution of the materials, of the techniques, of the patient selection tools. And overall, from the technical point of view, currently we know that mechanical thrombectomy done with a stent retriever or contact aspiration associated to IVTPA, which is extremely important, is the standard of care for the anterior circulation major vessel occlusion in acute ischemic stroke. We also know that both techniques have been described as extremely effective, both stent retrievers and contact aspiration. But one thing is the personal opinion, and one other is the evidence that we can get. So we have two different techniques, two different guns, as Professor Schellinger was pointing out before. And when we have two different options in medicine, of course, the first thing we want to know is there one that works better than the other one? And so the study objective of the ESTER trial was to try to understand if there was any kind of advantage to use one technique rather than the other one as a frontline technique when you have a large vessel occlusion. So if we start by thrombectomy with a stent retriever, it's better than starting with contact aspiration. That's why we designed this trial, which was a prospective, randomized, multi-center trial with patients with anterior circulation occlusion, and that were randomized either for stent retriever or for contact aspiration. It involved 8 centers in France to do that, and 380 patients were detected as the goal population to try to see if there was an absolute difference of 15% between the two groups. These were the enrolling centers in France that participated to the study. And our main endpoints were, of course, since we are talking about the recanalization of an occluded artery, was the grade of recanalization. So a successful recanalization at the end of the treatment, but we focused also on the difference at the very beginning of the procedure, meaning after the first 3 maneuvers that we did with each of the techniques. And we had also some secondary outcomes that were focused on the procedural times, on complication rates, and on the clinical outcome of 3 months. The inclusion and exclusion criteria were nothing of surprising. The only thing that we wanted to point out was that we excluded the tandem occlusions, since they are a different type of pathology, and obviously the posterior circulation. That's what happened during the trial, and what we have seen and what we have done after having verified the inclusion and exclusion criteria. We have randomized the patients with a stratification by center and by the use or not of IBTPA, and then patients were treated either by contact aspiration or by stent retrievers. We have verified after the first 3 passages what was the recanalization rate, and if needed more passages, we have then verified what was the recanalization at the end of the procedure, and then we followed the patient up for 3 months. These were the patients that had been screened for eligibility, and about 50% of them were excluded because of the exclusion criteria. And what were the baseline characteristics for these patients? We had just one significant difference about the age of the patients in the 2 groups. Patients treated by stent retriever were a little bit younger than the other ones. No difference about vascular risk factors, and the other difference was about the systolic blood pressure, which was significantly different with higher values in the contact aspiration group. No differences about etiology or other type of parameters. Site of occlusion was not so different. There were a little bit more of intracranial ICA occlusion in the stent retriever group, and a little bit more of M2 MCA in the contact aspiration group, but otherwise the differences were not significant. What about the key metrics? What we could see from here was that the contact aspiration technique was a little bit more faster than the stent retriever group, and that we could save at least about 10 or 15 minutes by using the stent retriever, by using the contact aspiration. And what were the final results after that? Was the stent or the contact aspiration superior to the other one? No. They gave absolutely the same results. So the first answer that we could give to ourselves was that to start with one technique or to the other one gave in each case a very good result at the end of the procedure. So there were no significant difference between the 2 types of techniques that we used. However, if we go a little bit more deeper in the data, we could see that if we used the contact aspiration as first intention, we needed to change for another technique in 32% of the cases, and this happened in 23% of the cases in the stent retriever group. And for both groups, at the end of the 3 first maneuvers, as you can see, an adequate recanalization could be achieved in about 63 to 67%. So after the first 3 passages. What about the complications? We didn't see any type of significant difference in different types of complications, and particularly for the embolization in new territories, there were no quite so different results, and as well as for the clinical outcomes, which were not so different in both groups. So, both techniques work well. What does it happen in the real life? It was a patient, I showed you just 2 cases, one treated by stent retriever, one by contact aspiration that were included in the trial. This is a 71-year-old patient who had sudden aphasia and right hemiplegia, so we can already suspect a left MCA occlusion. The time of onset was at 10:30 a.m. Patient had a severe neurological deficit, baseline Rankin scale was 0, and this was the MR at the onset. And you can see in the diffusion sequence, upright to the left, an insular and partial superficial MCA territory lesion. And this was the flare sequence, which on the insular level showed a very slight hypersignal, and that's why we didn't want to administer the IBTPA in this case, because of a partial positivity of the flare sequence. But you can see as well also the spaghetti sign, meaning the presence, indirect presence of collaterals, and the left MCA occlusion. There was a quite tortuous aortic arch, but we managed to go not so many difficulties by using a balloon occlusion catheter, 9 French catheter, to bring in the internal carotid artery, and this was the occlusion point. So a left MCA occlusion. Look at the time of the beginning of the procedure, which was 14:15, so 2 p.m. We are about at 4 hours from the onset, and the presence of the collaterals that you can see, which is quite good. And this is the navigation that we do. You see the guide wire with the microcatheter, and we will get through the clot with the guide wire at first, and then will be followed by the microcatheter, always inside of with the guide wire inside. And once we get position which is good, and the fact that we are in a proper position can be achieved by very small, very gentle injection of contrast, meaning we saw that we were in a good branch. So we deployed the stent. This is a Solidaire stent. As you can see, there are some markers that increase the visibility of the stent. This is the Solidaire Platinum stent. And we left per protocol the stent for 3 minutes, and then after the 3 minutes we inflated the balloon. You should see it here in the lower part of the screen, and we retrieved the stent after having partially captured. You see here the stent and the microcatheter, which is pushed at the level of the proximal marker, and with the inflated balloon at the level of the ICA, we retrieved all the material. And this was 13 minutes later the result of the procedure, with a complete recanalization. And this was the clot that we retrieved, that you had already seen on the MR, which was a very short one. And this was the clinical outcome. 24 hours later, the patient had no neurological deficits except for a small facial palsy, but good also CT scan control. And the other patient has the same, almost the same clinical picture. I wanted to show two very similar cases with always an MCA occlusion. And in this case we gave TPA because the lesion was not visible in the FLAIR sequence. And this was the anatomical aspect when we did the first angiographic run. Look always at the timing. Here we are 5:21 p.m. This was the navigation you see in the AP and lateral view. This is a case treated by contact aspiration. So we use a guide wire with a micro catheter, which we use it as a more supportive guide wire for the contact aspiration catheter. And once the contact aspiration catheter is at the level of the proximal part of the occlusion, we leave it there and we start the aspiration with a pump or with a syringe as you prefer. In this case, so we don't go through the clot, we remain proximal. And after 3 minutes again, with an inflated balloon occlusion catheter, we retrieved the suction catheter, and this was the result 14 minutes later. So effectively, both work well, absolutely work well. And this was the clot that remained stacked at the level, trapped at the level of the aspiration catheter, and it really draws the MCA and bifurcation. And this was the clinical result. So no neurological deficits, very small neurological deficits, but very good clinical outcome 3 months later. So global results are good for both techniques, and apparently it doesn't matter what you use as frontline strategy. However, you can have seen after the first 3 passes, the real effectiveness of both techniques is about 60% of the cases to receive and to achieve a good recanalization rate. But we asked also some other questions. does it differ if we are in an M1 or M2 occlusion? Is there a technique which works better in these two different occlusion sites? Does the fact to give or not to give a BTPA change something in the trial? Does the clot burden, so the extension of the occlusion, affect the result of the techniques? Does the fact to use more or less than 3 passes had an effect on the outcome? And are there any predictions for the recanalization that we could study from this trial? Regarding M1 and 2 occlusion, no, there was absolutely no difference in both techniques. About IBTPA, to give or not to give, yes, there was a difference. There was a difference because the mortality is reduced in patients in which we administer the TPA. Clot burden. Clot burden, so the extension of the occlusion. You might know the clot burden score, a 10-point score, then you should delete some points according to the occlusion level, but there was no difference at all. So the longer is the clot, and apparently there is no difference about the technique that you use. So no difference also in this case. More than 3 passes. If we performed more than 3 passes or not, did that have a clinical impact on the patient? Of course, yes. Of course, yes. And this was much more visible for stent retriever. If you start by stent retriever, you must try to get your best within the first 3 passages, because after the first 3 passes, the chance to achieve a good clinical outcome decreases in a very important way. And as the last of the insights that I want to show you is a paper that I had published some months ago to try to understand if there is really a pattern of the occlusion site that can predict what type of technique you should use. And apparently, what I had found in this preliminary paper was that if you have a clot, I don't know if you can see it here, but if you have a clot who has a very irregular shape like that in the picture A, it doesn't work, the pointer, but if you see the clot with this irregular shape, it should be much more responsive to the stent retriever technique. And oppositely, if you have a clot with a very straight shape, so a regular occlusion, it should be much more responsive to the contact aspiration. This was just a preliminary observation, and it reflected also the less number of maneuvers that you have to perform if you start with the proper technique, and also the higher recanalization rate that you can achieve by using the technique according to the type of the occlusion that you have. And we have replicated this analysis in the Aster population, and we found exactly the same findings. But when you have 2 things, the other option is to use them in association. You can use a stent and aspiration together. So that's what we have tested during the Aster 2 trial, and we have finished the recruitment in July, so the results will be available at the end of the year. We have compared the use of all of the stent retriever along with the balloon catheter with the use of both techniques. And we will wait the result at the beginning of the year. Just to show you this case, we have a patient with good collaterals with a very small lesion, M2, proximal M2 occlusion, and this patient was, in the trial, was randomized for a combined strategy. And here we use the stent as an anchor. You see in the red box the markers of the stent, in the black one the marker of the contact aspiration catheter, and you can move the contact aspiration catheter on the stent to the occlusion site. And this was just after 1 passage, the result of the procedure with a good clinical outcome. To conclude, all of that we have found during this trial is that both of them provide very good recanalization rates. They work very, very well. There was no significant difference to use one or the other technique. However, there is still a main challenge, which is to try to identify those predictors who can let us achieve the best recolonization rate with the shortest procedure time and the lowest rate of complications, and mainly speaking of new territory embolization. And for the combined approach, we still don't have enough data. We will wait for the STER2 trials. But this is important in the way that you have to apply that to all your daily practice. If all these cases that you had seen, when we always recolonize an artery, theoretically we should have every patient which is saved, but you have already seen that is not the case. Otherwise, in our presentation, we should always show the graphs like that. But the real graphs are these ones. And there is always a difference between the recolonization rate and the clinical outcome. And that's why we have the so-called futile reperfusions. And this is because, and try to fix that in your mind, because maybe this is the most important slide of the presentation. When we speak about recolonization, it's just an anatomical result. We reopen an artery, we restore the blood flow. But what is extremely important is the concept of the reperfusion. It means a biological effect. What the recolonization determines at the level of the brain tissue. And so, to conclude, thrombectomy is a great maneuver. Yes, just the last slide. It's a great maneuver, but if you don't consider all the rest, which is the stroke network and all the work that you are doing to build it, it will be quite useless. I thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Professor Consoli, for the interesting lecture. Now we shift to the last speaker, one of the eminent neurology and neurointervention in Egypt, Professor Ahmed Bassouni, Professor of Neurology and Intervention Neurology in Shams University. He speaks us about optimized management of endovascular treatment for acute ischemic stroke in Egypt. What is missing? Professor Ahmed, please.
هو الحقيقة مش هلحق أقدر تنزلش عشان الوقت، فنفضي البروسس خالص بالظبط. بس يعني أنا عايز أقول حاجة بس النهارده الحقيقة إن النهارده القرار تاريخي لكلية وزارة الصحة إنها تعمل ريمبرسمنت للحالات الكورونا. وعايز أشكر بس المجموعة اللي كانت معايا، المفروض عارف طبعا أحمد وحسام صلاح والدكتور مجدي، لأنهم بيبوشوا على الوزارة على مدار الشهرين فاتوا بشكل كبير جدا إنها يعني تاخد القرار ده. الحقيقة أنا شايف إنه هيغير شكل السtroke في مصر، والمفروض إن كل أسئلة سواء جامعي أو وزاري يعني يستفيد من القرار ده بإن هو يحسن السtroke سيرفيس. ونشكر كل الأجانب اللي إحنا عزمناهم في intervention طبعا. Thank you for
We shift to another session. Chairman, Professor Ahmed Al-Ali, Professor Muhammad Abdurrahman, Professor Magda Anis, Professor Hussein Midwari, Professor Hussein Salah. Now we start with the first speaker, Professor Ali. Professor Adel Hazani from Qasr Al-Aini University, we speak about Qasr Al-Aini stroke experience. Came stroke Arabic stroke experience. Welcome in Egypt. أهلا ومرحبا بك في مصر.
Evening, it's great and honor to be here with you. I'd like to thank the organizing committee, and truly I feel that I'm one of you and belongs to Qasr Al-Aini. So such a wonderful meeting and elite group, and I would like to congratulate the organizing committee, Professor Hani, Professor Ahmed, Professor Hassam, and everyone for such a wonderful meeting. I'll talk about stroke in Saudi Arabia, and I promise I wouldn't bother you with the dry statistics and information, but rather I would like to share with you our experience to promote the stroke care in Saudi Arabia. And before doing so, I want to start with historical notes. This is Dr. Saad Al-Rajhi, Professor Saad Al-Rajhi, one of the first neurologists trained with Dr. Saeed Bouhlega and Dr. Al-Bawi. He was trained in the US, and this is the first time he gave prophylactic that we have documented. Back in 1992, his description of the case, that was even before the approval of TPA, so he was brave then. And as you all know, there was a train going from Turkey to Medina, Qatar al-Sharq, and it seems that this train was working and somehow stopped. And so the stroke care in Saudi Arabia was the same. There was a lot happening. This is Dr. Abdurrahman Al-Hifra, who was able to establish first stroke units in the kingdom. It was not in any one of the big cities, Riyadh or Jeddah or Mecca. It was actually in Al-Bahr, rather a small city on the eastern side, or in the southern side of Saudi Arabia. So that was back in the past, but now what's happening right now? Our population now is approaching 33 million. We are a big country with an area around 2.25 million square kilometers, with more than 150 cities and more than 2,000 villages. And as you can realize, there is many cities and towns, but there is many areas where there is no population, which can pose a challenge for a stroke care. We are one of the fastest growing nations with a growth rate of 3%. And our problem, we're dealing with a stroke, which is officially the second leading cause of death in Saudi Arabia, and it's one of the top leading causes of disabilities with road traffic accidents. We're dealing with highly prevalent vascular risk factors. Hypertension, 1 in 5, diabetes, 1 in 4, obesity approaching 40%, coronary artery disease, 6 to 7%, smoking, 15% in the big cities. So very prevalent vascular risk factors. We know, we've been hearing about the effective therapy we have for stroke, and also the majority of stroke cases, 80% of them are preventable. Yet our problem that we have a fragmented stroke care, which affects the outcome and also the cost of stroke care. This is the current status of stroke care in the kingdom. We have about 42 hospitals able to give IVTP and give it 24/7. 12 hospitals who give thrombectomy, and it's available 24/7. They didn't include those centers who do it periodically. And there are 8 stroke units operating around the kingdom. We have more than 450 hospitals. If you compare this to the Cardiff, there are more than 150 hospitals with stroke, with CCUs, and those hospitals deliver thrombolysis, and maybe 60 or 70 hospitals provide PCI. I wouldn't talk about, in the previous years when I used to give this talk, I would talk about different centers around the kingdom and what they are doing. And we have a few centers of excellence. Among them is KFMC, or King Fahd Medical City. Their stroke center is established since 2005. It's the first center in the Middle East accredited by the JCI as a stroke center. Their TPA percentage is up to 15%, and their door-to-need in the majority of the cases less than 60 minutes. So they're doing a good job, and they have a very comprehensive stroke center. Similarly, King Abdulaziz Medical City was accredited both for stroke and rehabilitation, and military hospitals. We have also centers outside Riyadh in Eastern Province, the King Fahd University Hospital, who was recognized in the last European meeting and received awards together with the hospitals in Egypt. And also we have a wonderful experience at the Hajj time, when all pilgrims have access to acute stroke care around the clock. But I'll talk about the stroke in general around the kingdom. Now, as I said, those stroke centers are at the large cities around the kingdom. But still, there are significant part of the populations living outside of those cities. Now, those centers cover nearly 70%, but as I said, significant amount of the population residing outside the major cities. And now the government movement is actually to decentralize population, and so also the care needs to be decentralized. We have more than 30 certified, trained stroke neurologists, and half of this number of neurointerventionists. Most of them are neuroradiologists, but we have neurointerventionists with a neurology and neurosurgery background. This is a study we published last year looking at the incidence of the first hospitalized stroke in Asir region. And this is one of the recent publications looking into the incidence and prevalence of stroke. As you know, in the last couple of years, there hasn't been any publications. We did the studies in Asir regions, including 14 hospitals and all the primary health care over 1 year. And the incidence quoted in this studies is 57.64 per 100,000 population. Now this number is almost double what was published 10 years ago. And as you would imagine, the incidence increases with age. If you are less than 40, your incidence is around 8 per 1,000, and if you are more than 45, you start going to double figure, so 30. And if you're hitting the 60 and 65, it starts to be triple figure. If you go above 75, it's around 800. So you know stroke is going with age. Males are affected more than females in our population. One of the challenges is actually in Saudi Arabia, most of our population are young. So nearly 60% is less than 45. But in the next coming years, currently the people above 65 are only 1.6 million. But in next 5 to 10 years, this will be almost triple to 4 million. And as I said, we are one of the fastest growing nations, not only by the birth, but also many people come to work in the kingdom. So we expect it to have continuous growth in our population and also aging population. If you put this number, it increased population at risk. If we realize that we already have a high prevalence risk factor, so only the number of the stroke cases will increase. We did an estimate based on the recent incidence studies. This is a very, very conservative estimate. We think that if we take only the first strokes, we have around 18 to 20,000 strokes per year. This is what's happening now. And I need to mention that this is a very conservative estimate. Only 5% of those patients are admitted to stroke units, and less than 3.5 of those patients are actually getting IVTPA, and we're doing less than 100 cases of thrombectomy. And majority of our patients actually, they don't use ambulances, they use their own transportation. We try to predict what's going to happen in the future based on this estimate, and we developed kind of an epidemiological model looking into this. We think in the next 5 to 10 years, probably this number will double. It will go up to 30,000. And our aim that all of those patients should be going to stroke units. If not all, then at least 95% of those patients. We want to establish a national thrombolysis percentage around 20 to 24%. And we think at least there are 5,000 large vessel occlusion among those patients who should not be left at the open. Smooth journey of the patient, starting with the recognition, going through proper channels with the AMS system, through emergency, radiology, acute stroke units, rehabilitation, and then back to integration of the system. And we should have this as a one system rather than fragmented between the different sectors. This is a problem that we're facing in the region, and probably it's the same in Egypt. A lot of our care actually happening in the tertiary and secondary hospitals, while nothing much is happening at the primary care and prevention. And this is not the right model because it's costing a lot and it affects outcome. What we are trying to achieve is actually try to keep patients healthy and try to prevent strokes from happening. and have only minor percentage treated as secondary and tertiary care where they need the interventions. So this led to the formation of what we call Vision Realization Office. As you know, the kingdom is going through a lot of transformation, and one of the transformations is transformation of the healthcare for the vision of 2030. And the main enablers actually is that the Ministry of Health, which is now provider for 60% of the care, will be actually regulated. So they will not be operating hospitals, they will be a regulatory bodies. And what will happen, there will be corporatization, which is complete private models. So hospitals will be run in a cluster group by a private model, and there will be healthcare financing, which will come initially through the government and through insurance. We're looking to larger participation from the private sector, and also we try to use the innovation and health electronics by having digital records and digital tools, and we're working on the workforce. One of the slides here is talked about the acute care model, and this acute care model, the new healthcare model, focused in keeping patients, in keeping people actually healthier, both physically, mentally, and socially. And then it has different domains. One of the domains is the urgent care theme. And here the stroke comes to the urgent care theme, together with the acute coronary syndromes and the trauma. And those three, the MI, the stroke, and the trauma, they are first the top three killers. They are responsible for responsible for the highest mortalities in the kingdom, and also for the disability. And also those three these conditions, they share the fact that they need timely interventions. And they have a similar structure of system where you have primary and secondary care systems. So what we are trying to do right now in the kingdom is to have a model for acute care which will be applying to Riyadh region, and hopefully will be at the national level. This work started a year and a half ago. We started to meet with experts, which is multidisciplinary, multi-sectorial, both experts in stroke, MI, and trauma. We sat together and we tried to brainstorm to see what are the problems and what are the issues and how we fix them and how we can establish a pathway. We went to the stakeholders, patients and their relatives, and we tried to take their feedbacks on what do they expected. We came with the many brainstorming and questions and obstacles in terms of access, in terms of pathways, in terms of transfer, in terms of lack of manpower and AMS capabilities. And we came with the pathways to try to happening over the last year or so. Those are the core values for our stroke care I want to share with you. Our stroke care is patient-centered. We put the patient first when we make the standard and the guidelines. The second value, and that it enables equity of access. It doesn't matter where do you live, any part of the kingdom, everybody should have same care regardless of where they are residing or their age or their background. The care should be value-based care. So it's not quantity, it's focused on also quality. And rather than having silos of center of excellence, you start to work in a network to adopt the best clinical practice and embrace innovation. Now, we're not going to wait for the best care to be delivered to us. So we need to be realistic and work with whatever you have. So you're not going to get your Rolls Royce and get it. So with whatever means of transportation you should start with, and work your way through. Now, this work is a work in progress. We start to develop. We are now finalizing the clinical practice guidelines and the standard, which is not only written documents, but also we have KPIs. What does that mean? Yeah, I have a few slides. I thought I have 20 minutes or so. So I'm just going to show you this is the Riyadh region, and it's not only Riyadh city. This is our model. And what's happening in Saudi, as I said, we have clusters. And cluster means one major tertiary hospital connected to X number of secondary hospitals connected to 100 to 150 primary health care. So right now we have 20 clusters around the kingdom, 3 in central and then in western province, northern, southern, this is one of the clusters in Riyadh. This is covering the southern part of Riyadh region. This is not only Riyadh city. And we are working through a stroke system, which is a set of activities with a common aim. And within the system, you should have a network, which is a group of hospitals within the cluster, which should be having an integrated fashion. This slide doesn't project very well, but this will show you a stroke pathway. So the journey of the patients from starting a recognized stroke center in one site to going back and reintegrated and doing rehabilitation in the community. I need to mention, and I agree with Professor Sikora, if you don't monitor your data and if you don't have a feedback, things will not improve. And this monitoring, what we learn, it has to come from an outside. So somebody outside to collect the data and monitor. And as I said, we have a clinical advisory group working with the Vision Realization Office. Those are working without their bias to their institute. We work as a consultant. There are a group of 5 neurologists, 1 neurointerventionist. It's a multidisciplinary, multi-sectorial. We have emergency, speech and language pathologists, occupational therapists, rehabilitation physicians, and emergency physicians with project manager and administration staff. This is the document we developed. It's a work in progress. This is the one we have from 24 November. Today, this afternoon, actually, I had to do meetings with them online, and we are finalizing this. But this is part of what's showing. So we divide the hospitals similar to the American systems, primary, comprehensive, and also stroke-ready hospitals. Every hospital should have a stroke protocol. This is an example of what we have standard for acute stroke units. So for example, one of the KPIs we look at it is use of antiplatelets, DVT prophylaxis, dysphagia screening, and this will be monitored and recorded. And we have administration follow-up on this. Our next step, we finish the standard, we finish the guidelines, we're trying to approach clusters, and we try to work with them around their logistics and manpower and spaces. The next 6 months, we'll have this plan over Riyadh region, and there is a data registry recording this, and hopefully by 2020, we'll have it around the kingdom. This is a work in progress. As I said, it involves education, training, and commitment. We appreciate the support we're getting from angels and from pharmacy and from all our colleagues in the region. Thank you. I'm sorry if I took longer time. And I'm here to learn from you as much as I want to share my experience. Thank you very much.
Many thanks, Dr. Ahmad. And now the experience of our Egyptian universities, and I will start in Qasr Ain Experience University, Dr. Kamel Wajdi. It's one of the experience of Ain Shams University Hospital about stroke unit.
Thank you. I'm going to go fast as much as possible. Since we are going out of time, I will only show the current experience of Ain Shams, or current status of Ain Shams. This map represents Cairo and the coverage area of Cairo. The red spot is actually Ain Shams University Hospital. Ain Shams University Hospital actually has 3 sites, 3 stroke centers, University Hospital and Specialized Hospital, as well as another hospital that is present in Abur city. Population of Cairo is around 20 million, that makes it the largest city in Africa and the Middle East, and the 17th largest metropolitan area in the world.
Catchment area of Ain Shams is actually covering East Cairo, North and Northeast Cairo, and New Cairo, besides the new administrative capital, beside portion of East Delta, Suez Canal, and the east of Egypt. Regarding some information regarding history of Ain Shams University Specialized Hospital Stroke Unit, it was the first stroke unit in the entire Middle East. This was in 1991. Initially, it was composed of a total of 15 stroke dedicated beds, which were divided in 4 intermediate unit beds, and the rest are ordinary stroke beds. Around 2013, another stroke unit was established that was in Ain Shams University Hospital, that was initially composed of 6 beds beside 5 intermediate neurology unit beds. Currently, Ain Shams University Specialized Hospital is being renewed to be more equipped and is currently under reconstruction. And Ain Shams University Hospital stroke unit was expanded in 2016 to be composed of 11 beds besides 6 intermediate neurology unit beds. Regarding service available in both stroke units in Ain Shams University Hospital and Ain Shams University Specialized Hospital, we assume that we are having the required services to state that we are a stroke center, but we are doing our best currently to have an accreditation and certification for being a stroke center. As for average number of patients served per year, assuming that there are 1,100 patients that are admitted to Ain Shams University units, besides nearly double this number that is managed with a full plan and followed by neurologist specialist with an internal medicine department. The 1,100 patients are actually admitted to the stroke units, and the rest of the patients are admitted to the intermediate or the intensive care units besides the internal medicine department, and are being supervised by neurologist specialists. Average door to needle time according to the SIS analysis until 2018. In Ain Shams University Hospital, it is 38% are injected within 40 minutes and 90% are injected within 60 minutes. As for Ain Shams University Specialized Hospital, 60% are injected within 40 minutes and 90% are injected within 60 minutes. Injection rate for all patients that are arriving within window, about 90 to 94% are being injected, and the rest that are not injected are either arriving at the end of time window, and or because of some logistics, no available beds or something like that, we then send such patient to Heliopolis Hospital, which is under the supervision of Ain Shams University as a stroke unit. This is a figure representing the statistics based on the SITS database, door to needle time. We began in 2016. The green color represents the portions that are injected within 60 minutes, and the other darker colors are beyond 60 minutes. We are progressing this since 2016, 17, and 18, and as well as 2015. 2016 until 2018, so we think that we are doing our best to get better regarding injection rate. And this is the number of recruitment in the SITS. We are expanding in the recruited cases. According to Egypt, we are recruiting 3,500 cases. Ain Shams is sharing by around 1,500 cases of the 3,500 cases that are recruited in the SITS database. Challenges and future. Current problems and challenges are no longer present since the endorsement of the thrombectomy this morning, and that was declared. As for our future plans, we are currently expanding our stroke unit in Demirbaş in Ain Shams University Hospital to have additional 22 beds, so a total of 32 beds besides 6 intermediate unit beds will be available to serve stroke patients within the next few months. And finally, this is the Platinum Stroke Award that was given by ISO in 2017 to Ain Shams University Hospital Stroke Unit, and the cover page of the manual that we use to deal with the stroke cases. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Taylor. Next speaker is Karim Mehdawi. He will tell us about the experience of Qasr Al-Aini University with a stroke.
Thank you so much for providing me this opportunity. I will just try to illustrate in a small journey the story of success behind the Qasr Al-Aini University Stroke Center. This is a regional information about what we are serving in Cairo. For stroke Kennedy, red dot is applied to Kasserani Hospital. And after that, I'd like to give some information about the number of the people that we are serving. We are serving around 25 million people in our Kasserani Hospital. It's urban area, and the catchment area is divided into the west, northwest, and the downtown Cairo. And this is the area shadows with the yellow. What we are serving almost like 1/3 of the whole Cairo. Okay, let me just start with some information on the history. The School of the Medicine actually has been established in 1927. We have been through 2 stroke units have been established in Qasr Al-Aini, the first one in 1996, and has been stopped actually due to some problem with the reimbursement. And the new one, it has been established in 2016, and it has been named as the largest in the Middle East. With this capacity, we are having like 16 intermediate care beds, 16 intensive care beds, 4 injection beds, an outpatient clinic with 6 slots, and an ER room with dedicated resident and specialist for 24 hours, 7 days. The services that we are applying actually is thrombolytic therapy, thrombectomy, neurointervention, aneurysm and arteriovenous malformations, neurosonology 24 hours 7, neuroradiology through the MRI and CT angiography, neurosurgery, neuro-ICU through ventilation and neurorehabilitation. What about our team? It's teamwork. The total team working through the stroke unit is 18 neurology residents who operate the ICU, 15 specialists, 25 consultants, 8 neurosonologists, 3 interventionists, 75 nurses, and 5 clinical pharmacy and nutritionists, and 5 administrative and 2 infection coordinators. I will show some statistics related to our stroke unit in Qasr Al-Aini. The average number of the patients served per year is 2,000 patients through the ER and the outpatient clinic. The average door-to-needle time is 22 up to 38 minutes, and the current injection rate is 13 up to 18%. What challenges that we are facing, what the futures that we are aiming to through our work, through working through logistics. The current problems actually and challenges are the RTBA capability and cost, it's fully covered. The thrombectomy cost is to be covered soon, and personnel shortage of the nurses and trained administration. The future plans to expand the rehabilitation center that we are having and do multi-center, multinational research plan. And this is a very good article actually that has been awarded by the World Federation of Neurologists. It's New Horizon of the Stroke has been established in Egypt and Africa and the Middle East. And finally, as Enchams has said, we received the ISRO award. It's only our unit and 2 other units in Czech Republic. Thank you so much for that.
Now, Dr. Hamada Abdeltawab give us about a short note about the Azhar stroke experience.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Now we will talk about Al-Azhar University Stroke Services. We have 2 main hospitals, Al-Hussein University Hospital and Said Jalal University Hospital. Areas covered by our hospital, Al-Hussein and Bab Sha'riya areas, constitute 3.5% of total distance of Cairo, include 32 areas with population number 1,200,000. Stroke units of Al-Azhar University Hospital. We have 2 stroke units, Al-Hussein Stroke Unit and Said Jalal Stroke Unit. Hussein Stroke Unit in ICU bed, 1 doctor and 4 nursing staff for each shift. Said Jalal Stroke Unit for ICU bed, 1 doctor and 2 nursing staff for each shift. Stroke services of our stroke unit. كنا شغالين في الأزهر على مستشفى الحسين الجامعي ومستشفى سيد جلال أو باب الشعرية الجامعي، بنغطي منطقة بتمثل 3.5% من المساحة الكلية للقاهرة. تعداد السكان 1,200,000 حسب الاداره العامه للتوثيق والمعلومات اخر حاجه في يناير 2016. ده الكلام النظري، لكن اكشوال احنا بنستقبل كل الحالات من كل الاماكن. ستروك سيرفيسز اوف اور ستروك يونت. نبدا بالثرومبوليتيك ثيرابي started at February 2017. Total number of cases treated with RTPA inside our stroke unit 42 cases. Outcome of cases treated with RTPA in our stroke unit: 33 cases improved totally on RTPA, 8 cases not improved but also not complicated, 1 case complicated with intracranial hemorrhage. بالنسبه للثرومبوليتيك ثيرابي يمكن طبعا العدد مش بالضخامه المطلوبه لسببين، السبب الاول ان الوقت مش طويل، يمكن احنا ما بدأناش من وقت طويل، السبب الثاني ان احنا بنعمل جود سيلكشن. جود سيلكشن فور ذا كيسز بيدينا الاكسلنت اوت كام الموجود، يعني لما نلاقي تقريبا ان احنا عندنا داخلين على 99% من الحالات ويز نو كومبليكيشن، وعندنا 78.5% من الحالات حصل لهم امبروفمنت. جود سيلكشن بيدينا اكسلنت اوت كام، ده يمكن بيأثر على العدد الكلي لكنه في الاخر بيدي بينفيت فور ذا بيشنت. The second service is Neuro Intervention Unit at Hussein University Hospital. يمكن احنا بدأنا من 2006. Deal with the following cases: arterial stenosis, AVM, and cerebral aneurysms. Diagnostic cerebral angiography. Total number of cases from February 2006 to November 2017. 3,050 cases divided into arterial stenosis, 2,058 patient, aneurysm 457 patient, AVM 435 patient. Complications of diagnostic cerebral angiography through 12 years of intensive work inside our neuro intervention unit. Rate of complication was 0.6 classified into 0.3 groin hematoma, 0.2 transient neurological deficit, 0.1 arterial dissection. Therapeutic cerebral angiography. Total number of cases 445 from 2006 to 2017, classified endostatic for arterial stenosis 225, endovascular coiling for cerebral aneurysms 118 cases, thrombotic material injection for AVM 102 cases. Complications of therapeutic cerebral angiography. Rate of complication was 2.1%, classified into intracranial hemorrhage 1.1%, groin hematoma 0.6%, post-catheterization neurological deficit 0.4%. يمكن الكومبليكيشنز مش نيجاتيف بوينت قوي لانها بتتفق مع المعدلات العالميه سواء في الدايجنوستيك او في الثيرابيوتيك. الدايجنوستيك من نص لواحد في العالم كله، الثيرابيوتيك من 1 ل 4، واحنا متفقين معاهم بنسبه كبيره. بنعرض الارقام علشان حاجتين، الحاجه الاولى ان احنا بنقول ان احنا ماشيين في نفس التراك اللي العالم كله ماشي فيه حاليا. النقطة الثانية يعني بنقول ان بس عشان ندي ابديت او ندي حاجة جديدة لازم يكون عندك بيزكس، وبنقول ان احنا البيزكس عندنا في الازهر موجودة من زمان، وخلال 12 سنة شغالين في السريبرال كاستر انجيوجرافي. ويمكن يعني عرض هذه الارقام تتعدى الالاف، بيكون تتويج لعمل كبير، لكن في تتويج اكتر ولازم كلنا نركز عليه في الثلاث جمل دول. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. من اجل ذلك كتبنا على بني اسرائيل انه من قتل نفسا بغير نفس او فساد في الارض فكانما قتل الناس جميعا، ومن احياها فكانما احيا الناس جميعا. صدق الله العظيم. شكرا.
شكرا دكتور حماده. دلوقتي الدكتور اسامه رجب من جامعه طنطا هياخد الاكسبيرينس بتاعته. اسامه رجب. نعتذر ان بعض التشيرز انسحبوا لظروف العشاء مع الخوارج. شكرا.
I would like to express my great thanks to my professor in our department who gave me this great chance to introduce the law, making it the 10th largest governorate of Egypt. The majority of residents in the governorate lived in rural area with an urbanization rate of only 30%. Out of more than 5 million people residing in the governorate. Our stroke unit in Tanta University Hospital introducing its service to cover 4 governorates: Al Gharbiyya, Kafr al-Sheikh, Beheira, and Menofia Governorate. Our stroke unit was opened in 2011 with 9 beds and 5 physicians. Now the number of beds are 40 beds and 14 physicians. Services available are thrombolytic therapy, mechanical thrombectomy, neurointervention, neurosurgery, ICU. Average number of stroke patients served are 3,300 to 3,500. Average door to needle time 50 to 60 minutes. These figures show gradual increase in the number of cases subjected to thrombolytic therapy in our unit, starting from 1 case in 2011 up to 136 in this year. Our current problem, mechanical thrombectomy, cause decrease of public awareness of stroke service, pre-hospital time delay, refusal of patients relative to sign the consent of thrombolytic infusion. This figure shows one of our intensive care unit. This figure shows our catheter unit. Finally, the future of Tanta Stroke Unit, the new stroke center. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Dr. Osama. And now, Dr. Khalid Osama for experience of Aswad University.
Assalamu alaikum. Now, today we'll share with you our experience in Asyut University. Asyut General Information lies in the middle of Upper Egypt, one of the largest and first university in Upper Egypt. Covering population of Asyut about 3 million, and also covering some areas about from Suhag and other area from in Kharga Governorate, and some from Ena, some from also. The first recruitment in Asyut University was in 1992 with for a large study for intra-arterial urokinase in 19 patients, and this first recruitment including 4 beds and 10 personnel. Current other new stroke unit in the other building, about 12 beds and 20 personnel. Service available till now is thrombolysis therapy and dedicated ICU. Now we are still working for workshops every 6 months to increase the public basic knowledge in the emergency medical provider and nurses. We are still now have still weekly training in support of Dr. Ahmed Bassouni at Chams University by 3 MD neurologists for training about mechanical thrombectomy. And now we have still no endovascular theater to do thrombectomy. Average number from skin stroke received by year about 1,600. Still time to needle still large 90 minutes. Injection rate about 6 patients per year. Challenging still till now patient education and social awareness, data registration, angiography suite still deficient now, thrombectomy cost and trained nurses. Future plan about adding angiography suite to our university and also add thrombectomy. This is a figure about new building of neurology department, and this corridor of large ICU including 12 beds and one of our ICU. This is a figure of our team of stroke units. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Khalid, and now Dr. Nicely from the Gazik University.
السلام عليكم. هنتكلم let's take a tour about regional information. الشرقية governorate located on the northern east part of the country and its capital is Zagazig. الشرقية is the third most populous of the governorates of Egypt and it is coming after Cairo and Giza with an estimated population of 8.1 million, last updated in January 2018, representing 42% were urban and 58 were rural. The catchment areas, Zagazig University emergency hospitals are considering the reference hospital to the canal cities, Sinai and the Kahleya provinces, in addition to the populated Sharqiya province. We joined the project of management of stroke, which was launched by Minister of Health by the end of 2016. In our department, we started actually using Alteplase as a treatment of acute ischemic stroke since 1 year. Our ICU accommodate 12 patients of high care and 12 patients of intermediate care, of total 24. Through this period, our hospital registers, they commented that 48 patients were sent to Zagazig University ER imaged and diagnosed as cerebrovascular stroke, 141 were hemorrhagic stroke, and 340 were ischemic stroke. 104 patients out of total 340 ischemic stroke were arrived within the therapeutic window of thrombolytic therapy. 74 of them were eligible for RTBA injection, but only we inject 23 cases, 6 cases only in the first 6 months and 17 in the second 6 months. Regarding the outcome of those 23 patients, the mortality rate was 4.3. Only 1 case died. 2 cases complicated with hemorrhagic transformation, 2 cases was complicated with tongue angioedema. Our stroke team discussed the obstacles we faced during the first 6 months and we identified the corrective action plan to overcome the problem we faced. Main obstacle was in pre-hospital delay. The first one was a lack of public awareness about early stroke symptoms and the presence of the treatment under the expense of the state. Misdiagnosis by the physician in ER. New categories of stroke such as wake-up stroke and day-unwitnessed stroke. But we overcome all of these challenges except the lack of public awareness. It's still not sufficient. In the delay, the main challenges was patients who have medical insurance until we take the approval to treat them in the university hospitals. The written consent, people refuse to write the consent because lack of awareness of the treatment, delay during imaging and lab results. We overcome also an IHSS score assessment. It takes a long time in summation and remember the items, but we overcome by using those apps, actualize dosage calculator and intravenous thrombolysis, but I recommend the IVT. Action plan modification results. In the second 6 months, 66 patients came within the therapeutic window of RTBA in comparison to 38 patients came in the first 6 months. We injected 70 cases with a rate 74% increased by triple fold in comparison to the first 6 months. Door-to-needle time shortened to 30 minutes only in comparison to 55 minutes of the first 6 months. Although the injection rate was increased in our hospital to the triple fold in comparison to the first 6 months, overall rate of utilization of thrombolytic therapy is still low in Egypt, below 1%. Thank you. I would share this cute, which I learned from my team. No one can do everything, but everyone can do something, and together we can change the world. Thank you.
Thank you. And lastly, but not the last, Dr. Amina Hussein from Bani Suef University.
We have very little experience in the Bani Suef Stroke Unit. I will take 5 minutes only. بني سويف هي محافظة مميزة جدا. هي مكانها في السنتر في اور كانتري. هي تقريبا من الجيزة حوالي 148 كيلو متر، من الفيوم حوالي 47 كيلو، من المنيا 146 كيلو، وده بيخليها قريبة من المحافظات دي. فبصراحة الفترة الأخيرة استقبلنا عيانين كتير من محافظات المنيا والفيوم بالذات. التوتال بوبيوليشن تقريبا حوالي 3 مليون. مساحة بني سويف about 11,000 سكوير كيلومتر. هي مكونة من 7 مراكز. الميزة انه عاصمة المحافظة اللي هو مركز بني سويف مكان في السنتر بالظبط بتاع المحافظة. أبعد مكان عن بني سويف سواء شمالا أو جنوبا ما بيبعدش عن عاصمة المحافظة أكتر من ساعة. فده بيخلي بالنسبة لنا البري هوسبيتال ديلي يعني أقل من أماكن تانية. محافظة مستشفى بني سويف الجامعي تقريبا هي أكتر مستشفى في المحافظة regarding the flow of patient. بتقدم خدمة لحوالي 40,000 patient per month. بدأنا نفكر إنه إحنا عايزين نعمل ستروك يونت أو نستبلش ستروك يونت في المستشفى، لأن الحقيقة إنه اسم النيرولوجي عندنا في المستشفى هو اسم النيرولوجي الوحيد اللي سبيشالايز في المحافظة. عدد الستروك بيشنتس اللي بنستقبلهم في الشهر كان تقريبا around 40 بيشنت. كمان الار تي بي الحقيقه مش متوفر في اي مكان في بني سويف، ولا وقتها كان متوفر في المنيا ولا متوفر في الفيوم. فكان بالنسبه لنا ده يعني يمثل urgent need ان احنا لازم ناخد ستيب تو هاف ستروك يونت. كان التارجت بتاعنا اننا يبقى عندنا ستروك يونت، ان احنا نقدم دايجنوز او نساعد في الدايجنوزس، نعمل ستابلايزيشن للهيموداينامكس، emergency treatment, prevention of complication, rehabilitation, secondary prevention. وكان التارجت الاكبر الحقيقه هو ان احنا نوفر RTPA في المحافظه، وخاصه انه مش متوفر في اي مكان تاني لا في المحافظه ولا في المحافظات المجاوره. بدأنا نجهز للمكان. كان قدامنا عقبتين كبار، هو تجهيز البليس والبريباريشن اوف بيرسونال او الاديوكيشن اوف ذا بيرسونال. نجحنا الحمد لله وعملنا الستروك يونت بتاعتنا في نوفمبر 2016. كانت 5 سراير بس. حاولنا نسهل الاكسس للستروك يونت، فعملنا ستروك هيلب لاين، عملنا بيج على الفيسبوك وعملنا اويرنس عن الستروك يونت بتاعتنا. بدأنا حملة اويرنس عن الستروك، كنا تارجتنج فيها الانترنال ميديسن دكتور، الهاوس اوفيسرز، النيرسز، الفارماسيست، الستودنتس، الكوميونتي اوفر اول. عملنا ستروك داي في نوفمبر 2016. حضر لي عدد كبير جدا، اتكلمنا فيه عن الستروك وعن الثيرابيوتيك ويندو. عملنا محاضرة عن البيت فودز اند مسكونسبشنز ان ستروك مانجمنت في الانترنال ميديسن اسوشيشن. برضه الحقيقة حضر عدد كبير جدا. عملنا حملة توعية على الفيسبوك عن الستروك والثيرابيوتيك ويندو بهدف تثقيف الناس. يعني الحقيقة ان احنا اخذنا حوالي شهرين عقبال ما جالنا اول عيان، كنا محبطين جدا. بس حصل الموست تشيف والايفنت، هي اول عيانه اتحققت بالار تي بي، الحاجه ليلى طبعا كانت قعدت سوبر ستار للفيسبوك والسوشيال ميديا فتره كبيره جدا. بدا الريت بتاع الانجكشن بتاعنا يزيد. بعد ما كنا بنحقن 2 عيانين في الشهر، وصلنا في اخر 2017 اب تو 8 عيانين. الدور تو نيدل الاول كان around 58 minutes، وصلنا اب تو 20 minutes في اخر 2017. الاوتكم من الانجكشن بعد 3 شهور فولو اب الحقيقه كان مشجع جدا. كان حوالي 74% من العيانين حصل لهم امبروفمنت، 7% نوت ريكفر، 3% هيموج، الدايت كانوا 16. كان النجاح الاكبر بالنسبه لنا ان اداره المستشفى لما شافت السكسسفول ستيبس انها كبرت الوحده. بعد ما كنا 5 سراير بقينا 10 سراير. بدانا اول ساينتفك ريسيرش للوحده اتكلمنا فيه، او بمعنى اصح يعني بدانا نسيرش فور ذا questionable neuroplasticity effect of RTPA، وطلعنا بكونكلوجن من الريسيرش ده ان الRTPA not just thrombolytic، انه بيحسن neuroplasticity. التشالنج والفيوتشر بلان بالنسبه لنا ان احنا provide neurovascular intervention service in our stroke unit. Thank you.
أنا بشكر كل الشباب من جامعات مصر المختلفة لمجهودهم الرائع في الحلقات بتاعتهم، وبشكر طبعا القائمين على المؤتمر الأستاذ الدكتور هاني عارف، الأستاذ الدكتور أحمد بسيوني، الدكتور أحمد عبد العليم، الدكتور حسام صلاح. دي كانت الحقيقه اخر سيشن النهارده، والى اللقاء غدا ان شاء الله الساعه 9:30 صباحا.